So good morning, this is great. How are you all?
Very well.
Jet lagged over? And I am so not a morning person, and each morning when I'm up at like 3, I think, no way. But it's getting better. So just to continue on, in a sort of overview, we say that when you do a practice, any kind of practice, which involves looking within, maybe in a different way or in a different depth, it involves seeing things that are glorious and wonderful and beautiful that perhaps we feel reluctant to even admit, wow, I'm having this kind of experience. And we see some things we've probably spent a good long time trying to avoid. We see everything, and it's all part of something important in terms of this journey. We say you cannot fail at this. You cannot have the wrong experience. You can have an experience you don't want to boast about, you know, like every one of us, if you left here and ran into a friend, what you really want to be able to say in terms of your practice is, well, it started out a little bit restless and I had some anxiety, and then this peace, this amazing peace, just descended upon me, and it filled like every cell of my body, this unfathomable peace. And then the peace began kind of shimmering on the edges and turned into bliss, this extraordinary bliss, and then it was bliss and peace. And that's what we want to say, right? We don't want to say my knee hurt and I was bored and I got sleepy and I got angry. But from the kind of more comprehensive view, the more true view of practice, it's all good. It's not good and bad, right and wrong. It's all challenging in its own way. It's not always easy to experience pleasure and delight either. And certainly to open to painful experience in a different way is not automatic. That's why we call it practice, right? But it's all good, it's all worthy. And whatever we become aware of, this is why Ramdas uses the phrase loving awareness. We try not to judge. Of course we do judge. And we have sometimes a lot of negative feeling or fear about what's going on, but we keep reminding ourselves, or others remind us, no, this is okay, this is a part of things. So I first met Ramdas and Krishnadas January 7th, 1971. I was 8 months old. At my very first meditation retreat. I'd gone to India to learn meditation. Look at my giant cup over here. Thank you. I feel a little bad that not everyone has a cup this size. That's my values, but I have one. So I'd gone to India specifically to learn how to meditate. It was kind of like my junior year abroad. I went as part of a college program, an independent study program. And I was looking for something extremely practical. I wasn't really into the philosophy or comparative religion. I really wanted to know the how-to. And it took a while, wandering around India, and finally someone suggested this intensive 10-day meditation retreat, which is going to be happening in this town called Bodh Gaya, which is a town that's grown up around the tree, the descendant of the tree. They say the Buddha was sitting under it and he became enlightened, so it's a very sacred kind of place. And so I went to this intensive 10-day retreat. Krishnadas was there, Ramdas was there, many people. So I met Joseph Goldstein. Dan Goleman was actually the person who suggested I go, so I met him even earlier, but he was there. Mirabai Bush was there. It was a tremendous coming together of all these people. And the teacher was S.N. Goenka. And for me, I was 18 years old. I had suffered a lot in my childhood and my life, and I knew I was unhappy. That's why I put together this whole effort to go to India. When I went to India, I'd never even been to California. You know, I went to India to learn how to meditate, and so there I was. And it was the first time I'd ever really looked within in a kind of clear-eyed way. And some of what came up was very difficult for me. I'm somewhat famous amongst this group of people that I started practice with for once having marched up to Goenka and looking him in the eye and saying, I never used to be an angry person before I started meditating. And he laughed. You know, and thereby I was laying blame exactly where I felt it belonged, which was on him. You know, clearly it was all his fault. And of course I'd been hugely angry, and I hadn't quite looked at it before. So there I was, me in my mind. I was just at this conference and someone quoted this recent piece of research out of the University of Virginia where people were offered the option of just sitting and hanging out with their thoughts or administering a mild electric shock. And most of the men, and just saying, and a good portion of the women, although less than the men, chose the shock. And what we are not realizing is that even as we open and we look at all these different things, the loving part of the awareness is an important component. Because it's all natural, everything we see is visiting, remember that? And none of it makes us bad. When we get tangled in certain states, that's when we suffer. And that can also elicit some compassion for ourselves. And so there's no bad experience to be had. Even on Maui, you know, you think of all places, you know, nothing will go wrong in any way. No dismaying experience, but it's a body, it's a mind, it's a community. Of course, everything comes and goes. So Goenka laughed, and that was the appropriate response to me. It's the loving awareness that we're really talking about. Sometimes we really emphasize the mindfulness part, the awareness part. Sometimes we really emphasize the loving part. But it's all one in its application, in its practicality. So we sit, anything can happen, whether you're with the breath or you're doing loving kindness practices we're going to experiment with today, or you're chanting, or maybe you're not sitting, maybe you're walking, maybe you're doing yoga, you're doing movement. It's all kind of this revelation of all these different states, and the awareness we can bring forth toward everything, the balance we can cultivate toward everything, and the qualities of loving kindness and compassion we can bring forth towards everything. So in terms of mindfulness, what I talked about a lot yesterday was a sense of choice, right? We see what's going on, there's enough space so that we can decide, basically, do I want to nurture this? Do I want to take this to heart? Maybe this is Lucy again. You know, maybe I'll just let her go. Sit happily over there, drinking her chai. I'll give her the biggest cup I can find. You know, she can just sit there. Something like that. And that choice is based on love and compassion for ourselves. Which is not selfish, it's not considered self-preoccupation or self-aggrandizement or anything like that. It's cultivating a sense of sufficiency, or even you could say inner abundance, out of which true generosity can come. You know, in terms of material generosity, they say in the Buddhist teaching, the best kind of generosity comes from a sense of inner abundance, not obligation, not, of course, show or something like that. And we know that you can have maybe an extraordinary amount by external standards, materially, but not at all have the inner feeling you have even enough. And so it's so hard to give from a good place. Whereas you might have very little, but you have a different inner sense. And it's so much easier to give. And the same thing is true for generosity of the spirit. Caring for somebody, smiling at a stranger, thanking somebody, being present, listening. If you feel depleted, impoverished, exhausted, overcome inside, it's not that easy, right? Whereas if you, in contrast to that, you have a sense of inner wherewithal, resource, you've got something going on inside, it kind of spills over naturally into that extension toward others. And that's why we talk about cultivating love for oneself, or even cultivating happiness, which is another odd word for us because it seems to imply the endless pursuit of pleasure, which we do anyway, you know. You don't have to have a practice for that. We already have a life practice for that. But we can redefine happiness and claim the word and claim the power of the word to that sense of inner resource. So I have a friend named Barbara Fredrickson, who's a researcher at the University of North Carolina, and she researches, commonly it's called positive emotion. I don't consider all these states emotions, but so I'll say positive states. She researches positive states, and like gratitude, loving kindness, especially loving kindness. It's one of her big research modalities. Acceptance, compassion, all these states that are actually positive ways of relating to the world. And her theory is that they are powerful and worth cultivating, not because we kind of feel good in a temporary way or a separate way, like I feel better than you, but because of two things. One, she calls broadening our perspective, or broaden, and the other is build. We're building the sense of inner resource. So if we cultivate a state like compassion, a state like loving kindness, a state like gratitude, our perspective will broaden. And this makes sense, right? Because if you think about it, and even you can bring it up right now, what's it like when you're in a complete grip of fear? Now, I'm not talking about just feeling fear, but when we are in it. The most immediate consequence is a kind of tunnel vision. Like when you're really afraid, it's not a time when you think, you know what, if it doesn't work out this way, maybe it'll work out that way. It's like all options for working out, they're gone, right? And our world shrinks to this seeming certainty that's truly terrible. What about when you're really angry? Like bring up for a moment a time you were really angry at yourself. Like, I don't know how long ago that might have been, but bring it up. It's not a time when you think, you know what, I said that really stupid thing, but I did 5 great things same morning. Those 5 great things, they're gone. Right? So, or think about greed. You know, a craving when we really, really, really narrow our sense of what will make us truly happy to a particular color for our new car. And we need that. Nothing else will do but mulberry. Speaking from recent experience. It had to be mulberry. And it wasn't mulberry. It was kind of a beautiful blue. Beautiful in any other context. Very unsatisfying in this context. It was the blue of the medicine Buddha. It's a kind of a lapis kind of blue. I don't see it anywhere at the moment, but if it weren't in contrast to mulberry, I would have been so happy. As it was, not really. Until, of course, I saw my mind. Forget that, you know. I'm not going to spend the next umpteen years unhappy because it's not mulberry. But you know what? We can. Right? So look how narrow our view gets, how much we get caught in tunnel vision when we're lost in that kind of craving or greed. Remember, these aren't bad states and they don't make us bad people. It's because of visiting forces that we suffer. So we're caught in this small little world when we are lost in those states. Now think of the opposite. Generosity, open-heartedness, compassion, gratitude, they broaden our perspective. It's like the world opens up. We may not see our way clear to what action we want to take, but it feels like there are options. It's a world of possibility. And you want to hear something I find incredibly spooky? They've done research on the cultivation of these states, and they find that your peripheral vision actually improves. I find that so spooky. Like, how does that happen? And so I need a new driving test. Everyone do a retreat before your next driving test. And then build is the second part of her formulation, broaden and build. And that means building a sense of inner resource. It's just like I was saying before, when we are so tired, we feel we have nothing going on inside. We feel so forsaken in some way, so neglected and overlooked by life. It's not easy to listen to someone's story and really care. It's not easy to remember this is a human being you're talking to on the customer complaint line. And you're the complaining customer. You know, or at the airport and your flight is, who knows, delayed 6.5 hours. That was 2 flights ago. Or 3, I think. It's not easy, and it's so much harder when we feel so unfulfilled, so incomplete, so fragmented inside. Whereas if we practice these strengths, these qualities, we're cultivating that sense of inner resource, and it's real. You know, it's not like trying to deny uncomfortable feelings or put a veneer over other things. That's how we face adversity, for one thing. That's how we keep on going in trying to make a change in some structure, because it doesn't happen right away. We go through lots of ups and downs in anything, any relationship, any community, any effort. It's just that way. And so to have a sense of inner wherewithal, we've got something going inside, that's pretty great. So broaden and build, that's why we cultivate this different kind of happiness, because it sustains us throughout everything. And here we are in Maui. I'm going to go back for a second to what I said a little bit earlier. It's not even that easy sometimes for us to let ourselves enjoy what's going on. We need to revamp our relationship to pleasure, to delight, to wonder. So first of all, we're not so distracted. We're not always on a device, for example. Pre-device era, I was here maybe for the first time in Hawaii. I don't know if it's Maui, I think it might have been Kauai. It was a long time ago. But I was like sitting somewhere outside, and I was reading the book Hawaii by James Michener, and Joseph said to me, why don't you put the book down? Like, look around, you know, like, look where you are. So that's my tendency, and now, of course, it's much more portable than it was back then. Look around, like, be here. And sometimes we're very distracted, so we're not taking in what's going on. Sometimes we have a more fixed idea of what should be happening. And so what is happening might be glorious, but it's not quite matching our idea, so it's not good enough. You know, like I thought it would be 10 degrees cooler. Whatever. Sometimes it's just difficult for us. You know, we feel we don't deserve this great thing, or there is so much suffering. That is true. And my enjoying what I have is somehow denying the pain others are in, or I've been in the past, or which of course is not so. It's more like building that kind of inner resource. Enjoying and savoring and delighting in and being present with does not mean holding on or being greedy or feeling you're better than somebody else. So my famous Maui story is maybe the first time I came here in December to this retreat. I left like a frozen world in New England. It was a really bad winter. And of course it's Maui, you know, which is unthinkably beautiful. And here we are, it was the same resort right by the water, you know, my good friends and all this thing, and it was a retreat. so it had been on my public schedule, but I did something extra, like I tweeted about it or something. And right away I started getting all these messages like, wow, you're on Maui. And I very quickly wrote, it's very humid here. It's like terribly humid. And I thought, what's that about, you know? And I mentioned it in the hall and it became like a thing, because once, like walking out, this friend was behind me, and walking out with her was the now adult son of another friend, and he was saying to her, oh, my mom really wanted to come, and she was so close to coming, and at the last minute she decided she couldn't pull it off, and now she feels so regretful that she didn't come. And without missing a beat, my friend said, did you tell her how humid it is here? So it's become like this joke, you know, and many of you came up to me even at the airport and said, it's really humid, isn't it? Yeah, it's really humid, which it is really humid. And so then I put out a tweet or something. I really wanted to do like a contest, like, somebody guess where I am. Very humid here. So I did a shortened form of that, and I got all these funny answers like, are you in the shower? Somebody said, well, you're not in Tucson. No, I'm not in Tucson. And then somebody wrote and said, does it rhyme with wowie? I said, yeah, it actually does rhyme with wowie. But think about that moment. It's very humid here, you know, how we can dismiss our own joy, too. We see all kinds of patterns, and certainly we have very convoluted, complex relationships to pain. We find pain disgraceful. We're taught to think of that. You know, it's wrong to have kind of a negative emotional state. You should hide it. It's bad to have physical infirmity. You should hide that. Or if other people have it, let's just put them away somewhere. You know, we have very complex relationships to pain. And we even have very complex relationships to neutrality. Those ordinary, kind of boring, routine, repetitive moments like, there's another breath, you know, another moment of this, another moment of that. And what we're doing is we're radically revamping all of that. Not the flow of experience, because the flow of experience is the flow of experience, but how we relate to all of it. So learning how to be with pleasure in a different way. We're also not getting attached and sort of spurning anything else. And learning how to be with pain, painful feeling in a different way. So we can be present, we can be kinder to ourselves, we can be kinder to others. And learning how to be with neutral experience so that we're not half asleep and kind of numb, waiting for something more intense to come around. That's really the essence of what mindfulness practice is. Being aware in a different way of everything that happens. And we also have this practice, it's called loving kindness practice, which is it's a different methodology, and it has a somewhat different way of working in that mindfulness is really the ability to see what our experience is and distinguish it from whatever those add-ons might be. You know, the story we're telling ourselves, the story others have told us about ourselves, whatever might come up. This is going to last forever, this is only me, whatever. I should have been able to stop this. That's the story. And so with mindfulness, we're present enough and quick enough to see the difference, and then we can choose. And loving kindness practice or compassion practice is said to change our default story. So if ordinarily what rushes in right away is Lucy times 10, you know, is the fear story of our being incapable of anything, whatever it might be, that begins to change over time because we're stretching. Loving kindness practice is like a really big experiment in awareness. If, for example, in looking at ourselves, we've primarily, or maybe even almost exclusively, looked at what was wrong, what we didn't like, the stupid thing we said, we stretch. It's not to say we're perfect or we're denying any of that, but that's not all that we are, ever. So what about the good within ourselves? Does that get any airtime? Or our capacity for change? Do we ever think about that? What about when we look at others? You know those times when you think about somebody you really don't like and you go through the list of their faults, and then you go through it again, and you go through it again, and you never even think of a new fault, but you just go through it again, and you go through it again, and you go through it again. That's a lot of our mental energy, right? What's the consequence of that? You know what it's like when you meet a stranger, but you've already decided you know who they are because somebody else told you about them. And it's not even your own experience, it's someone else's perception that you're now carrying around. That means you've frozen that person into a category. That was boring. Well, there's that boring guy coming at me, you know. I better run. So what happens when we realize, oh, you know what, I don't even know for myself how I would find this person. What if I just stop and pay attention? So loving kindness doesn't mean you like somebody. It doesn't mandate a certain kind of action. It doesn't mean you're going to take them home with you. It doesn't mean you're going to give them money. It doesn't mean you're going to say yes. It does mean that within one's own heart, there's a sense of inclusion rather than exclusion. There's a recognition, which is sometimes very poignant, that our lives have something to do with one another. That the construct we tend to live in of self and other and us and them is a construct. In fact, our lives are intertwined. It's so confusing because, first of all, we don't tend to use the word loving kindness very often, right, if ever. It also seems a little squishy. Like I have a friend, my first book was called Loving Kindness, and I have a friend who told me he was reading it on the New York City subway, and he was so embarrassed to be seen reading a book called Loving Kindness that he used to cover up the letters so no one could see what he was reading. And first I thought, oh, he must be covering it over with his fingers. And then I actually looked at the cover, and it's like really big letters. And I realized he was actually covering it with something else. And I thought, my God, it's like pornography or something. You know, it seems so sentimental and weird. And the word in Pali, the language of the original Buddhist text, is metta, M-E-T-T-A. And if you've ever been to the Insight Meditation Society or seen our literature, I think there's some in the folder. It's a large brick building with white pillars, and it's got this word up above, metta, M-E-T-T-A, because when we bought it, it was a Catholic novitiate. It was run by the Fathers of the Blessed Sacrament, and that's what it said up above the doorway. And we got somebody to get up in a very tall ladder one cold day and said, could you rearrange those letters so it says something about us? So they did, and they came up with metta. And then we had like these endless debates. Should we keep it up there? It's not English, nobody knows what it means. Why should we have the Asian word there? It's not even a living language, you know? It's like, no one talks Pali. But the point of view that wanted it up there prevailed, which made me very happy because that was my point of view. I like it because if a delivery person calls for directions, for example, whoever answers the phone can say it's a large brick building with white pillars. It's got this word up above, metta. And then they say, what does that mean? And we say that means love, or that means loving kindness. The literal translation is friendship. That I also find awkward because to me, friendship implies getting together, you know, at least following one another on Twitter, like, you know, forming a real bond in action. And I believe we can have loving kindness for someone and decide for whole other reasons it's wrong to spend time with them. It's not safe sometimes to spend time with them. Or we can decide I'm going to put all of my energy into fighting against their point of view and trying to curtail their actions. but not from a place of hatred. So, my friend here yesterday reminded me, love should always lead the way, right? So that's the point, and that's powerful. That's not giving in. That's not, being meek. That's not being a doormat. That is its own power, all in and of itself. But it doesn't mandate kind of conviviality, which is what we're afraid of. Does it mean I have to? And it doesn't. We know there's such a thing as tough love, there's such a thing as fierce compassion. That's genuine. We're not pretending this is for your own good or I like you, so I'm doing this. It's very genuine that we are including within our own hearts. It's like one of named Crowley Baba's great sayings was never throw anyone out of your heart. Never throw anyone out of your heart. My friend, my colleague, Sylvia Borstein once said, quoting him, never throw anyone out of your heart. You might throw them out of your life, but never throw them out of your heart. When I was writing my forthcoming book, Real Love, I did a lot of groups with different people, like all over the country. I asked people for their stories, for their insights, for their experiences. And I learned a huge amount that way and was very enriched by that process. And the first group actually I did was in New York City. The book is, I can't remember if Lily said this yesterday, it's in 3 sections. The first part is all about cultivating love for oneself, and why that isn't narcissism or something weird. The second part is about love for an other, whoever that other might be. And the third part is about love in the bigger sense, love for all beings, love for life itself. So the first group I did in New York City, this guy raised his hand, he said, most people think of a good relationship as 50-50. My dog and I, we're 100-100. And I love that, so I immediately put it in the book, and then years later, because I was so late, there I was in England, as I said, and I was about to press send a day early, and I suddenly had the thought, did that story make it in through all these iterations and editings? And I looked and it hadn't, so I put it back in, and then I pressed send. So the last group that I did was in Barre, Massachusetts, where not only do we have the retreat center, but we have like a resident staff and we have like a community. So somebody there said something extremely interesting too. He said, all my life I have kind of thought that liking somebody is like the bottom rung of the ladder. Of course we like people, but loving somebody, that is a rare, rare, supreme accomplishment. And he said, you're reversing it. You're saying we can love everybody and not like very many people, if anybody. And I thought a moment and I said, you're right, I am reversing it. Not that it's easy, now I love everybody into the weekend, It's not like that, but I do believe it's possible, and we do have those rare but extraordinary models. Not only, great saints or great heroes and heroines, but very ordinary people living seemingly ordinary lives who are amazing. And so in that possibility, we need to recapture a sense of love. It can't be the ordinary sense of things. It can't be holding on. It can't be all that conditional. Like, what if you said to yourself, I will love myself as long as I never make a mistake? Not long lasting, right? It's got to be something other than that. And so I tend to define metta, M-E-T-T-A, more as kind of connection. It's a profound sense of connection. And since everybody is asking me, what do I mean by real love, which is the title of the book, I say, I'm sure not in a very satisfactory way, I think it means a profound sense of connection. It's looking at somebody knowing our lives have something to do with one another. In the Buddhist teaching, they say, the Buddha said, everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants to be happy. We all want a sense of belonging somewhere, to this body, to this mind, and this earth. We want a sense of being a part of something greater than our limited sense of who we are. We all want to be happy. And we tend to be so confused about where real happiness is going to come from. And we're also fed many lies about where real happiness is going to come from. Like, missed my mulberry car this time. Well, I wasn't thinking about getting another car next year, but clearly I need to, because mulberry will be there. Just wasn't there in 2016. We're fed many, many lies and myths about what we need in order to be happy, and even as people believe them, you can see their lives getting smaller and more circumscribed and lonelier and more frightened. And so we need to really examine those ideas and bust them open and really look, what is strength? Does vengefulness really make me that strong? That endless obsession about someone else's actions? Does love really make me that stupid? Love not in the usual sense, but in the meta sense, you know, loving kindness sense. Does it really make me that sort of meek and sweet and ineffectual? Really? How alone am I? What's the truth of this experience? And so that's really what our practice is like. So we do loving kindness practice as its own practice. It's like an experiment in stretching, in paying attention differently to ourselves and to others. And we're going to do some. So if you want to literally stretch and take a short break, we'll come back, we'll do some practice, okay? Lots of babies. Many of you are probably familiar with the practice of loving kindness. You do some form of it, and there are many forms. So I'm just going to suggest one. If you're interested, you can experiment with several. Check it out. I think it's a beautiful practice. It's a little bit of a intricate practice in that it can lead to a lot of judgment. You know, I don't have a heart. This isn't real love. I had 5 minutes of real love yesterday. Why don't I have 18 today? But it's a kind of practice that if you do it, and I mean do it wholeheartedly, for a period of time, you will see, I'm confident you will see enormous changes. But you see the changes in your life. You don't necessarily see them in that formal practice period each day. And so it demands a lot of us in terms of our usual expectations and impatience and the place we look in order to assess what's going on with us. So almost everybody would tend to look at that 10 or 20 minute period each day when they formally practice. But that may not be full of, first of all, it may not be full of emotion, because I don't think loving kindness is an emotion. Sometimes it manifests that way, but a lot of times it's just a certain sensibility. It's a different way of being present. It's a different sense of inclusion. It's a different worldview. It may not have a high emotional component, and if we define love only in that one way, it's far too narrow, I think. There could be a lot going on underneath the level of emotion that we just don't see, but it's powerful. So, for example, I have a friend who took me out to lunch in New York City, and it was like a confessional lunch. He said to me, I just have to confess something. And that is when he said, I've been doing loving kindness practice now. It is my practice for 3 years or so, every day. And when I sit down to meditate now, my experience is not all that different from what it was 3 years ago when I first started out. He said, but I'm like a different person. He said, I'm different with myself, I'm different with my family, I'm different ethically, I'm different in my community. And then he said, is that enough? And I said, yeah, I kind of think that's enough, you know. So I do think we have to assess, not every moment, because then we're never doing the thing, we're just assessing, but not looking at the wrong place, right? Like, look at your life. How are you when you made a mistake? How are you with yourself? How are you meeting a stranger? All kinds of things like that. It'd be very interesting. So the way I practice, and again there are many ways, the offering of loving kindness is an offering. It's like gift giving. It's a practice of generosity. We offer the loving kindness to ourselves, we offer the loving kindness to others, and finally we offer the loving kindness to all beings everywhere, all forms of life. There's a whole trajectory, there's a whole sequence in the formal systematic practice, not for any one sitting, but over time. Starting with the person who's supposed to be easiest of all for us, that's ourselves. Moving to a benefactor, somebody who's helped us, or we admire someone who's inspired us, even if we've never met them, then a friend, then a neutral person. That's someone we don't especially like or dislike, we just feel kind of neutral about them. Usually that's someone who plays some role in our life, like a shopkeeper or somebody we tend to see now and then, because then we get to notice if there's a shift in our relationship to them. We offer loving kindness to a difficult person. Not in the spirit of giving in or being phony in any way, but that kind of stretch, like what's it like when I actually have compassion for this person instead of such incredible hatred or whatever. And we're supposed to start not with the most difficult person, like the unthinkable person, but somebody we feel a little bit of annoyance with at work, for example, and then slowly make our way over. Not that it's wrong, but we're kind of building an embodied wisdom all along the way. Like, what does it mean to have loving kindness for myself and this other person at the same time? And so those kinds of questions, even if we don't get a literal answer, we kind of know inside more and more what it could possibly mean. And then we move to loving kindness for all beings everywhere, for all of life. So in any one sitting, usually we say, see if you can start with yourself and end with all beings. And what you do in the middle could be anything. Maybe you have a friend having surgery that day, and so that's the middle. Maybe you're going to the dry cleaner, and the dry cleaner is your neutral person, so that's the middle. Maybe you're sitting a little bit longer. You have time for your dog and, a neighbor, whatever. The extension of loving kindness is done through the silent repetition of certain phrases. The phrases are the conduit for paying attention differently. And generally speaking, the way it's phrased, the construct is may I, may you. May I be safe, may I be happy, may I be peaceful, may you be safe, may you be happy, may you be peaceful. This is not meant to be pleading or imploring, but it's gift giving. It's like, again, my friend Sylvia would say, it's like you hand someone a birthday card. You say, may you have a happy birthday. May you have a great new year. May I be safe. May you be safe. Right? This is different than an affirmation, which I've never done, so I can't actually speak about. I am safe, I am happy. This is a different practice. This is gift giving. It's offering. It's a practice that we do. The power of the practice is said to come from the complete wholehearted presence behind one phrase at a time, not through forcing any kind of feeling or trying to manufacture an experience you're not actually having. You just keep really gathering your whole being around one phrase at a time, and the practice itself will lead to whatever it's going to lead to. The skill set is really the same, even though we're not using the breath. Very likely your mind will wander 1 billion times. You see that? See if you can let go. See if you can start again. Right? Okay, so I'll guide you through one of the many variations. So see if you can sit comfortably. Again, you can close your eyes or not, however you feel most at ease. Let your energy settle into your body. And see if there are 3 or 4 phrases that kind of work for you. They need to be big enough, general enough, so you can make this offering not just to yourself, but to others. So it's not like, may I have an easier time leaving Maui Airport than I did last year, May I be safe, may I be happy. Very commonly, you don't have to use these phrases, but very common phrases these days, beginning with oneself, are may I be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. Live with ease means in the things of day-to-day life, like livelihood or family, may it not be such a struggle. May I live with ease. May I be safe. Be happy. Be healthy. Live with ease. You can repeat these or whatever phrases seem right to you over and over again with enough space and enough silence so that it's a rhythm that's pleasing to you. This is like the song of the heart. The feeling tone is one of blessing. It's offering. And see if you can call to mind a benefactor. That's someone who's helped you. Maybe they've helped you directly, they've helped pick you up when you've fallen down, or maybe you've never met them, but they've inspired you from afar. The texts say this is the one whom when you think of them you smile. It's like an embodiment of the force of love for you. Maybe an adult, maybe a child, maybe a pet. Who makes you smile? So if someone like that comes to mind, you can bring them here. Get an image of them, say their name to yourself, get a feeling for their presence, and offer the phrases of loving kindness to them. Even if the words don't seem perfect, it's okay. The phrases are the conduit for the heart's energy. So they're serving us as a vehicle. And think of somebody who's here that you didn't know before you got here. You may not know their name even still, but you could just get a feeling for them. Here's a person who wants to be happy just as you do, just as we all do. Here's a person who is as vulnerable to loss and to change as we all are. And see what happens as you offer the phrases of loving kindness to them. And then everybody here, which includes a whole variety of different relationships, those whom you may know quite well, those whom you don't know at all, and yourself. So the phrases become something like, may we be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease, or whatever phrases you're using. And then all beings everywhere, all people, all creatures, all those in existence, near and far, known and unknown, may all beings be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. So thank you, all beings, thank you.